Hi, everybody. It's Dina at the Realize Foundation. And today I am here with Laura. And I'm so excited for you to hear about her upcoming chapter in Scars to Stars Book 4. So, welcome, Laura. And I'd like you to maybe introduce yourself a little more and tell people where you live in the world.
Hi, Dina. Thank you so much for having me and for letting me be part of this wonderful organization and this effort. And I can't believe that this is already the fourth volume and I get to be part of that. So thank you very much. I live in Cary, North Carolina, which is right outside of the capital. And it is, I know that the R and the Y in Cary stand for relocated Yankees. So we have a lot of people who don't were not born here. I was about to say don't belong. That sounds like something a southerner would say, and it sounds like something my grandparents would say, because it's been very, very interesting to see how fast this state has grown. And I was born here back in 1965, and the population has, I don't know, quadrupled and has gotten much larger. And I've lived all over the United States, and I'm fortunate enough to come back and live here.
Awesome. Do you know that the first chapter in the very first book of Scars to Stars was written by a man named Daryl Rogers, and he lives in Cary, North Carolina?
That's very, very interesting. I would
Yeah,
love to see if he still lives here.
he
It's
does. He just built a new house in the past year, so
a lot of mobility in this area, and I am just I'm amazed at how fast everything is growing. I've lived in three different areas just in the Research Triangle, and fortunate to live here.
that's awesome. Well, I want you to tell everybody how you found Scars to Stars, because it's somebody that you met is on our board and has been involved in everything we've done since day one. So I'd love you to talk about how you met Deb and how you
Well,
got here.
actually, my cousin is Frank King, and he's a speaker on suicide prevention. And before that, he was actually a stand-up comic, and he's actually the number one TEDx speaker in the world today. And Deb and I are both clients of his. Now, Frank is actually my cousin, and I've known Frank since 1987, and I was actually at his wedding. And he's a very, very distant cousin, but a cousin nonetheless. And we've kept in touch over the years. And when he started this business of coaching, I certainly wanted to be a part of it. And when I went down to Fort Lauderdale this past February for a keynote conference with Kimberly Crow, I met Deb, and it was a very intensive conference, as you know that these 3-day workshops can be. And we were with each other for 8 hours a day, and we would often get together at night. And I learned about Scars to Stars at that point and wanted to learn more about the organization, Realize Foundation, and also about the books.
That's awesome. And did you know that I was a client of Frank's, and I think I introduced Deb to him?
Well, see, everything comes full circle.
I know, that's crazy.
What do you know about what time frame, what time period that would have been?
It was probably a couple years ago when I became a client of his, and then towards he also worked with Liv Sane, who's one of our authors, to get her TEDx talk. She's in Florida, and he also worked with Johnny Crowder, who has Coat Notes. So I kind of got to know Frank, but from Liv, but then I knew he was working with Johnny as well. And Johnny has two TEDx talks about suicide,
Mm-hmm.
and so it was kind of this little group I was part of that got me in touch with him. And to be honest, I was his client for a year, but I wasn't in a place where I was ready to do what I needed to do to get my TEDx talk. So that's still on my bucket list, but one day. But
Well,
I'm glad that.
I did the next best thing to a TEDx talk, which is a speak event. And they're the number one competitor to TED. And I had an 8-minute memorized speech, and it was nerve wracking. And so at least I got my yayas out with that speech. So when TEDx comes along, I'll at least know what to expect.
Yeah, yeah, I'm sure. It can be nerve wracking. I am speaking more, but not on the TED stage yet.
Mhm.
Well, I want to talk about your chapter in Scars to Stars 4. I want you to tell us a little bit about your story.
Thank you, Dina. Well, I've had quite the teaching career. You finished reading my chapter, and I've been hither and yon, as we say in the South. And I started my career back in 1987 as a teaching fellow over in the People's Republic of China. And I was up in an area of the country that hadn't been open very long. And so white people were very rare. And it was really fascinating because it was like being a rock star. And it was fun for a while because everywhere you went, people were fascinated with you. And then after a while, it was absolutely cumbersome because you couldn't go anywhere without everybody looking at you. You couldn't stop anywhere without people gathering around you. You couldn't ride your bicycle without people, running into things because they're sitting there gawking at you. And it was a wonderful experience until it wasn't. And I spoke of a tragedy that happened that quickly ended my tenure there. And one of the teachers that I was with was brutally murdered, and the murder was never solved. And that was pretty much one of the bookends of my teaching career. And it's been tumultuous ever since. It's been very gratifying because I love being a teacher, but I've always found myself in very odd situations where I'm often the only white teacher on the faculty. My first job in North America was in Arkansas, and it was an alternative school, and it was a very sad situation in that it was pretty much all the forgotten students, the leftover students, and we got all the leftover materials, and we didn't have air conditioning, which was just horrendous in Arkansas spring and summer. And it was gratifying in the way that when you can get through to several students a year, you just feel like you've moved a mountain. And I was there for about 5 years, taught in Pennsylvania, got my master's degree there in educational technology, went on to Michigan, and then came back to North Carolina. Got married a couple of times along the way. And that was my teaching career. And then with my second husband, I was in the film business for about 10 years. So I've been kind of doing a lot of things. I'm currently a music teacher, and I would say by far it's the best job I've ever had.
Awesome. So what do you think is in your journey that you kind of gave us a synopsis of, what is the biggest adversity that you had to overcome, and what do you think helped you overcome it?
Making poor choices, and usually it's out of falling in love. And because both of my marriages, I stand by both of my marriages at the time that it happened, and they both needed to come to an end. And that's probably one of my biggest regrets in life, is that I didn't choose correctly. And I, never thought that I would end up being single at my age, but I have several girlfriends. One is also twice divorced, one is widowed. And let me just tell you, it's hella dating at this age. And so I'm plenty happy, being by myself and surrounding myself with people who love me and celebrate me and, don't tolerate me. And, finding faith in my community and as I said, finally finding the job that I was meant to do. I knew that I was always meant to be a teacher, but um, finding the right niche that was ready for me and what I had to offer was the greatest thing ever. And it took a very long time to get here.
Mm.
I grew up loving movies and I was a set teacher. I worked in the film business and I worked with some of the biggest actors on some of their worst films. And so I know what it's like to work 70, 80 hours a week on these films, only to have them go to the discount bin in Walmart that's, $4.99 markdown, and you're, rifling through this bin and you're like, I didn't know Nicole Kidman starred in this movie, and these were the movies that we worked on, and it made good money, hard work, but it's a very, very tough business. And if you have thin skin, if you're sensitive, it is not. If you're Pisces, it's not the business for you, unless you have a really cutthroat manager, and then maybe you're good to go. But I was a set teacher for young actors underneath the age of 18, so it was a real tricky job in that I had to keep the parents happy, which everything you've read about stage parents, everything you've read about set parents is true times 10. And I have to keep them happy. You have to keep the production happy. And of course, you have to keep the actor happy. And I think that because I have no children, that's become part of my lifestyle. It's become part of my character, part of my identity. And women who have children cannot understand women who do not have children. And it becomes a difficult thing to be in a group of women when they're all talking about their children and you don't have anything to talk about. And they feel awkward around you. And a lot of times you don't get invited to these things. And so a lot of that happened on sets. Like, how would you know because you don't have children? And I'm thinking, well, I'm a master teacher and I've been teaching for 25 years, so I do know some things. And so that was the big struggle with film work. And as you know, it's not consistent, and so you need to have a job in between. And because of those things, film wasn't right for me. And the classroom has just gotten, all you need to do is turn on the TV or open up your newspaper. How do you like that? I said, open up your newspaper to know what's going on in the American classrooms today. So teaching music has been the best of all worlds. I've been a musician my whole life, and I'm not dealing with discipline problems. And everybody who sticks with me gets my sense of humor. And I've developed quite a community over the past 5 to 8 years.
Awesome. Yeah, it's true. So I'm going to change the subject one more time and ask you about your experience in this project of Scars to Stars and the book and the community and other people you've met, and like what has that meant to you and what has been helpful to you in this process?
I think I was saying at our weekly meeting the other night that this has been so wonderful because I'm not really sure how many meetings we've had, but I'm thinking it's approaching, if not surpassed, double digits. And I've been to almost all of them except for the night that I went to see a Cake concert, very good concert. And but getting to know these people from all across the country has been phenomenal. And hearing about their journeys and the obstacles that they've overcome has been inspirational. I think that having these weekly meetings has been most beneficial circling back to the Speak event, it was the same idea. We all had very, very inspirational speeches that we were doing. We were people from different walks of life from all across the country. And unfortunately, we only had 2 Zoom meetings. And one of them was us practicing our speeches. So there was very little interaction. I don't even think we had like a group text or anything going on until the day we all got up to Long Island. And so this has been much nicer in that we've kind of been on this journey together. We know that we're all struggling with these chapters for different reasons. Sometimes it's just hard for us to tell our story. In my case, I'm an English teacher, and nothing's ever going to be right. Even if the editor says it's great, you know, the chapters that you're going to be reading in this book, I can just say that it was very, very difficult for all of us. And it was just wonderful to have those people on a weekly basis all griping and cheering about the same thing for the same cause.
It is great. And I'll say, like, a lot of times when people first come in their first writing, they do have a hard time putting their words together or just their thoughts together around what they want to make public about their story. Sometimes it's sensitive things. Sometimes it's just something maybe they haven't processed fully, and so it's hard to write. So it is not easy for most people when they start, but by the time that we publish the book and it's out in the world, usually everybody is very proud of what they've done, and they've healed a little more from it because of the writing. And it's really magical what happens with these books. I can't explain it. It's
there was one author that said that it opened up a huge channel with her family. Mm-hmm. I mean, it was just wonderful. That was a couple of meetings ago. I know you know who I'm talking about. It was just like, well, I hope I get to write in volume 5 and I can have that same experience, because I've had so many teaching experiences and trying to get everything into 5,000 words. And I think I said something to you before we started recording. I said, well, this one sentence could be an entire 5,000 words. And I think a lot of people, when you're reading these chapters, they can say the same thing. And I know that Deb has written in all 4 volumes, and I'm sure she's taken little nuggets from each of her chapters, because that's the way life is. And I think that when you have trauma or when you have excitement, or whatever you want to call it, I think we try to condense that and just not really think about it. And so writing about this opens that back up and lets you think about it in a different way.
That's true. It's funny because sometimes we have chapters that are like kind of an overview, similar to yours, of your teaching and career and things that have happened, throughout that. And then some people will write about an hour, like very specific, what happened in this hour or this day. Mm-hmm. And so the chapters are vastly different about subject matter, about time frame, all of that, but they're all impactful in their own way. And I think there's something to be said about taking a moment in time and like really diving into that moment. Like Lisa, who used to be our president, her first chapter that she's written 2, she said, she said her first sentences or paragraph was her being thrown out of a moving car, and her explaining that in such a detailed way that you could put yourself in that moment, So there's lots of different ways that you can write about something that is traumatic that will help people put themselves in your shoes, or maybe even relate to something in your story where they're feeling like, okay, I'm not alone. There is someone else in the world who has been through something similar. And that's the whole point of why we do these books.
Mhm. Yes, I'm just amazed by everything that I've done since 1987, and I think that's why I just wanted to get it all down on paper and just say, look, y'all, I'm still here. I'm still here. I'm still smiling, and I'm still teaching, and I'm still here. And these are my scars, and I'm making stars, as a music teacher. And because, there are just some days when I'm just exhausted. I'm just so tired by everything that life has thrown at me. And then you have the great days. And this what I've accomplished in the last year, this is just this is the best. I'm just so proud of this, Dina. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for being part of it.
Yeah.
I want to tell everybody how they can find you. So I'm going to put your email address up, and you can share any last thoughts you have about this project. And it's going to be, well, people will be watching this at a later date, but we have 17 days, 16 days, I don't know, something like that before the book's out. So how does that make you feel?
I'm so excited. I'm a Toastmaster, and I was at a meeting yesterday, and a fellow Toastmaster is doing something similar, and he was like, "My book is launching today." And the way he said it, and I said, "Oh, did you write a book?" And he said, "Well, I wrote a chapter for a book." And I thought, well, my book is launching really soon too. So there. I didn't say that because you don't want to one up people. That's just tacky. I'll do it at a later date. It's like file this for 11 days from now or whatever. So I'm just really excited. This is last Thanksgiving. I just remember telling someone asked, what did you do this past year? And I said, taught music classes. And this year I went to Florida. I met Deb. I became part of this whole enterprise, and it'll be so fun to go this Thanksgiving, and not for bragging rights, but it's just a great sense of accomplishment when you don't have a partner and you don't have children. You have to do things for yourself. But I need to do better about social media, because I don't brag about mine. I don't say, "Oh, look at what I did, y'all." But this is something that I've got to share with the world. I got to start letting my little light shine.
Absolutely. Maybe just bring a copy of the book to Toastmasters in a month when it's
I'll bring
done.
it to Thanksgiving and put it on the table.
There you go. That's awesome. I'm so excited for you. Yeah. Well, I will see you next week, and then our book launch was coming up soon. So can't wait to get it out in the world.
Thank you so much, Dina.